So at this moment, I'll try and talk about that experience, and I'll put it into a way that I can kind of see it, or a bit of imagery for me, because it's hard for me to really look at who I was and what I was thinking before I discovered what I discovered. I knew that I was on the course to trying to understand the meaning of it all, the meaning of life, um, and I was having that conversation with everyone around me. I was vastly fueled by my curiosity towards some form of understanding about what was going on. It got my goat. I loved it, and I still love it. And when I discovered it, or I could say when it found me, I didn't really expect it to happen, and it was completely overwhelming. In one way of thinking about it, it was like a grand light turned on in my life, and to try and pinpoint where the source of that light was coming from is are kind of challenging to try and express, because I could see it in everything, and I could see it coming from wherever my sight comes from, so I could like point my attention within and see this great light. And this great light was in everything and behind everything, so it was on the backdrop of everything, and it was filling all of the material of everything within physical reality, and all the people that I was talking to, and all the words that we're uttering, all the vibrations of sound. It was within all of that, and I could see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, sense it. I was just aware of it, and it's like this light just flickered on, and the closest word that I could come up with at that moment, and it was like, oh, it's love. Oh, I see there. I get it. Oh, and that's just how it was, and I felt it like emerge within my body like a wellspring, and suddenly everything just made perfect, clear, total sense in every direction, through space and time. Everything I was looking at in the room I was in, but also all of the memories I'd ever had, and all of the things that had happened to me, all the way from being a kid to growing up to being 20 years old when it had happened. And it all made sense to me, why it had to happen, why I was watching cartoons that day, and what Bugs Bunny was saying. All of it made just perfect sense. All the music that I had ever heard, I suddenly could hear all of the lyrics in one single instant to every song that I had ever heard in a single moment. And it all made perfect, utter, clear sense. And it was all being emitted from this great, grand, mysterious, glorious light that came on within and without, and just in everything that I could possibly experience. And I saw it as connecting the whole entire experience and my whole consciousness and the whole universe, as far out into the furthest stretches of the stars that you could possibly see out in space, all the way down to the smallest, most minute quantum levels of atoms and molecules and neutrons and protons. All of it fit together in this perfect tapestry of divine harmony. And it was all being transmitted to me through this divine light that was within me too, and within each and every one of us. But it didn't mean that it just like stayed illuminated to its maximum effect past that point. It was in the moment that I discovered it and discovered me, and that light turned on. I could no longer think outside of that realm. However, I then had to proceed through my course and spiritual path from that point on, drastically transformed into something different. And at that moment, yeah, it was the end. It was the whole enchilada, and I wanted to explain it to everybody and get it across to everybody. And at that time, I was going about it wrong. It became who I was. It became my ego. It became, and I came on too strong. And I recognized as I proceeded through my life that there were still things within who I was that were not congruous with the harmony that I had discovered. That there were parts of me that were still in defiance of it, that weren't true. That I still held on to lies and disintegrity things that weren't true to me and to my spirit and to who I was, to my friends, and I still had yet to discover them. And that's been my journey all the way up until now, almost 20 years later, 18 years later. I still see the light. And there are moments throughout the day, even through my own personal discipline, where I can see that light again. And it shines brighter than it ever has. Every time I come back to that light, it's shining a little bit brighter this time, shining a little bit brighter this time, shining a little bit brighter this time. And throughout my course of life, up until this point, I've been working on that. And I've had ups and downs. I've had hills and valleys. I've gone through the darkness again, time and time again. Um, Not to say that there wasn't a lighthouse off in the distance and I wasn't aware of it, but I've been immersed and stuck in my own ruts. And I recognize, though, from my perspective now, that I still had to get through those. That I had to get through those so I knew how to rise above it and teach others how to as well. Knowing full well that it isn't up to me, your path. That I'm not here to change anything about who you are. That isn't my job here. All I can do is broadcast my light. And that light is the very same light that I discovered that day.
Does the light allow you to see more things or see things in a different way?
Absolutely. In a weird kind of way, it's like if I was to take a light, like a flashlight, and go and proceed into the darkness, and I could, find my way around through the darkness because I'm shining this light on everything. Well, okay, that's the analogy of a flashlight. But imagine, if you will, that flashlight is lit up from all angles in all directions and from within too. Suddenly I can see the darkness for what it is, and I can see that the darkness only exists because there are certain blocks to the light. That the light existed, well, this is up for conjecture and up for argument. We can talk about this all day, whether or not the darkness existed first or the light. I think they both emerged simultaneously. That there was no real beginning or end to either one of them. uh, See, again, a lot of what this light is shining on is completely intangible and inexplicable, and there really are no words to describe all of what that light's shining on. And I'm talking about, the interconnectedness of all things, the infinite array of wavelengths that we can't even perceive with our eyes. It's like, oh, and in that moment when I'm focused on the light, I can see that too. There's no way I can express it, nor would it be relevant to a conversation. I mean, like the invisible lines of connectivity that you have to everybody in this neighborhood. And so I could see it. I could see it like little streams of data connecting everybody. But I can also see beyond that and see that it's all one spark of light too.
Did the light illuminate your relationships, your job?
Yes. Everything. The whole thing. The whole life. And it was from that point on where I was like, well, I know that I am destined to do more than whatever I was doing at that point. And at that point, I think I was working at a gas station. I might have been a cook by that point. I don't know. And I still had a lot to figure out. I wasn't very well established. I was undisciplined. I was involved in drugs and drinking and partying, and there was a lot I still had yet to figure out. There was a lot of what I've termed as integration that needed to happen, integrating who I am with the truth that I had discovered. And that's been a rocky road along the way, and certain paths have been smoothed out, and parts of myself have integrated into a greater whole. So, I had different selves. I had my party self when I was at my friends, and I had myself when I was with my parents, and I had myself at work. And in that time, those have all married each other. Those different selves that were previously disconnected and had their place in time have all come into a homogeneous, holistic whole me, who I am. And I aim every day to continuously bring all those pieces together to be a better, more authentic self so that I may more accurately and precisely and profoundly and poignantly express what I'm trying to get across with eloquence and beauty and precision and articulation. So yes, it did. It changed everything because suddenly I was cognizant of something that lived within me, that lived within everyone else. However, it may be dormant in other people, of this unconditional love. Suddenly, from that point on, I was able to look at others with the light of unconditional love. Now, it didn't mean that I was or am happy with them, especially if they're violating another person's free will or actively unconsciously destroying the planet around them or destroying themselves. I'm certainly not happy with it, but I allow it. It's okay. They can live their life. And it doesn't have to affect me unless by choice. Unless it's directly affecting me or someone within my family, that's when I'll step up and I'll do something about it. But if I'm just watching it on TV, I'm not going to stress about it. And I'm not going to bring up the stress in conversation. I'm not going to perpetuate it by constantly adding to it, by investing time and energy into it. But I can still love it. Yes, I can actually love it, meaning that I'm allowing it to be what it is in fullness. It is what it is. That's that. By me saying that, I am saying that I unconditionally love everything that's happening at any given moment, all the time, always. And my spiritual course in my life is trying to live up to that.
For someone like me, again, who aspires to enlightenment, it's extremely interesting what benefits I might anticipate in my life. Because there's a lot of time uh, or effort, or at least it seems that it would require that. Well, what's the payoff?
Well,
What's the light at the end of the tunnel?
I love that question. And there are words that are already in place for this, and I've used one of these words, and I'm going to slowly enunciate the word atonement at one mint. At one mint. That's quite literally within that word is becoming one, and that's putting things in their place, right? Reconciling. That's putting everything in its place where it's supposed to go. It's not dashing the bad and saying, no, that doesn't belong here. It's saying, no, it belongs in its place. There's a reason why, we imagine that hell is down there and heaven's up here or whatever, because there is actually like a vibrational ordinance to everything. And I'm not saying that that's true. It's true for some. I'm saying it actually exists. Is it necessary for everybody? No. But I'm saying everything that can be conceived can exist. It's completely up to the individual who's having the experience. But what you can expect to find if you achieve your own enlightenment or self-realization is that you're able to sort out all the inconsistencies and stresses and tensions and disruption, confusion that you've been dealing with up until that point. Then you're able to sort all that stuff out. You're able to understand why you had to go through the difficulties. You're able to understand why you had to do that surgery. And you'll recognize that there was a benefit, that there was a blessing in disguise there. And it's like pulling the disguise away. It's suddenly, you know, and this is a term that's been used, enlightenment is turning the light on. It's turning the light on everything. It's literally filling with light. It's turning all the lights on, shining them on everything, all the nooks and crannies, all the stuff that you haven't wanted to look at, inside all the closets, up underneath and around all the skeletons within those closets. But you'll recognize, oh, where those skeletons go. And I'm using, analogies and metaphor to try to describe something through imagery. But you'll recognize, oh, that skeleton doesn't belong here. That belongs in the graveyard. Well, you know, my my mind has been in the graveyard for the longest period of time. Um, Perhaps I've kept the wrong thing in the graveyard. That's where I kept a specific relationship with a family member that I can never get along with. So to me, they're dead to me. They're dead to me. They go in the graveyard. But that's not true. They don't belong in the graveyard. The skeleton does that you're carrying around. And the skeleton is the problem that you're having with that person. And that's in the closet right now. But no, the closet is where you put your coats and all your linens. Okay? So you take that off, you put that there, you pick up the dressings and everything that you have in the graveyard, put it back in the closet, you organize everything, put it where it's supposed to go. So that's something you could hope to expect, or that you will experience through the processes of, and progression of self-actualization. And that's just turning a light on. You turn a light on here, turn a light on here, turn a light on here. And what I'm saying is that there is actually a big light that turns on all of them. It's behind all the other lights. And that light is perfect, divine, harmonious love. And it's the same thing as God. And it's the same thing that we have been searching for our entire lives on this planet.
But does enlightenment make it easier to see the joy and the beauty and even the humor in life? Take it less personal.
Yes.
Look, see the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course, on levels that you'd never even conceived of. Yes, enlightenment allows you to access greater joy because it's the source of joy, and it does come from within. And when you experience something that we're calling enlightenment, you'll recognize that light is within, that you're turning that light on from within, and you begin to recognize that the well from which you receive all these feelings, all these emotions, all this experience is coming from within that well. And once you become aware that there is this well within you, you can draw more from it. That's why I speak like I do, with the kind of passion I do and the kind of excitement, and I can pick up the pace and really get into it because I am aware of the well. And it's a spring, it's a fountain of energy. And I'm telling you, when I found enlightenment those 18 years ago, I had first at that moment experienced joy like I'd never experienced before. And I cried a million tears. I was crying and laughing and like out of my body all simultaneously. Like everything about my body just wasn't a concern. The weight was gone. That's kind of fascinating too, because not only was it light like we think of as light, like the sun or a light bulb, but also light like as opposed to heavy, like there was a rising that occurred, and suddenly I was weightless, and everything that was bogging me down or holding me down had dissipated and disappeared. And I recognized that all there was this great light. I love the Spanish term for lighter. Lighter is ascendedor. Ascend. The word is right in there. And that's some of the fun that I've been having ever since then, is deciphering and decoding the human language, especially from my perspective of English. I recognize that the root of all these words are actually all pointing to the same thing I'm talking about. And we could have a discussion on each and every word and go on forever to the end of time, deciphering and reconfiguring and writing up a new dictionary to really express what all these words mean. They're magical. They are literally creating the world that we experience. And at at their core, words are symbols. Words are forms, are thought forms, are forms of energy and vibration. And we've used those symbols to create everything that we have before us. All the homes we live in, all the cars that we drive, all the cell phones in our pockets, everything, the agriculture, the societies, all of these structures have been built up with the symbols that we use. And what I am here to say is that we're actually, each and every one of us, in control, in command of that language, of those words, of those symbols. And we get to decide what they mean or how much meaning we put into them. Word.